Hello and welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is David Novak. I just watched a video by Brian Lee Durfee, who has been in the hospital for about 3 weeks, and he nearly died. He was this close, and he apologized to his viewers for not having any books that he's finished reading. He said he's mostly just been watching TV. Well, I understand that very well. In my case, I have not finished any books either, and that's because I have been embroiled in the long-winded Victor Hugo saga, Les Miserables. And I am enjoying parts, and other parts I am enjoying less. But regardless, I am not compelled, say, as with Alexander Dumas, the Count of Monte Cristo, to open the pages and just stay for hours, so long as the spirit moves me. Now, there was a little horseback ride, and it had a little bit of the Dumas flair, and so I was enjoying that a little bit. But then, all too soon, you go into these musings. So the character was debating, having an internal debate, whether he should open a doorknob or not. And that was an entire chapter. Should I open this doorknob or should I not? And so it's not really as scintillating as Alexander Dumas. I would suspect that because of the high popularity of Dumas, that Hugo had to try to spice up his novels a little bit. But I really don't know anything about the relations between the two men or what they knew of each other, of each other's work, and so forth. Anyhow, that is not what I want to talk about. But suffice it to say that I do not have any books that I've finished, and so I thought I would do something completely different and just have a little chat about poetry. And I don't know where this is going to go. The video may not wind up going up. But I pulled out a couple of books. A couple of these because they are books that I found while I was looking for something else. They're not books that have been hidden away. They are in my anthology shelves. But still, I have a lot of anthologies. I could do a whole video or multi-part video on all of the anthologies that I have. But I pulled them out, and they have sentimental value to me because they are books that I have had in my possession since the very earliest days. You might remember that I took a class at the University of Illinois Chicago Circle with Paul Carroll. Now, he was a lovely man, a wonderful teacher. I don't think that his poetry overall has held up for me, but he is an excellent case in point that it is better to be a great man or a great person than a great poet. It is better to be a good man or a good person than to be a good poet. After a lifetime's worth of struggling to get the better of words, is something that I know for a fact. It's better to not write good poetry, but be a good person. Sort of like that Lincoln anecdote about being a lawyer. What was it? If you can't resolve to be an honest lawyer, then resolve to be honest without being a lawyer. Well, same thing with good. Better to be a good person than to be a good poet. And if there is any conflict, then you have to opt for being the good person. So I was young and didn't really know too much about poetry. And in Paul's class, he was very much up on his contemporaries. The poets in this volume were his contemporaries, and he knew many of them, if not most of them, personally. And so these were the names that were around quite a bit. And let me just tell you the names. This anthology was edited by Donald Hall, and he may very well be the greatest poet in here. It's hard for me to assess, but I think when I say something like that, I base that upon one poem in particular, and that to me raises him above the others in this book. There is a lovely poem by Richard Wilbur and by some others in here, but nothing that quite reaches that pinnacle that Donald Hall did in this one poem, which you can find on my channel. I doubt that he considered it one of his best or an important poem. It had a sudden flourish and was anthologized. And then he went on to do other things, and nothing else had that same kind of success, I believe. But that's just the fortunes of being a poet. So we start with William Stafford. Now, I had a friend named Richard Huttel. This is the book we were in Paul's class together. This is his book. And he was a huge fan and student of William Stafford. William Stafford, I think, had a book, Writing the Australian Crawl or something like that. And he was a big advocate of workshopping poetry, that sort of thing. Then Dudley Randall, David Ignatow, Robert Lowell, Robert Duncan, Reed Whitmore, Howard Nemerov, Richard Wilbur, Anthony Hecht, James Dickey, Denise Levertov, John Logan, Louis Simpson, Edgar Bowers. I have a book of his. I've seen some poems by him that I like, but nothing that really has stuck in the memory. John Haynes, Donald Justice, he was big, Robert Bly. Now, Robert Bly was a poet that I happened to see. I think this was before his Iron John days. That kind of was a shtick that he fell into. I don't know to what degree it's hokum and to what degree it's something that has genuinely helped a lot of people. I can't say. But at the time that I saw him, he was playing the dulcimer, and so he may have read a poem here or there, but he was mainly all about playing the dulcimer for his audience. So I remember that event very well. Then Robert Creeley, and interestingly enough, these are by birth date sequence. So Robert Bly was born in 1926. Interesting. And the next poet represented here is Robert Creeley, also a poet that I happened to see in person, born 1926. And he came to Circle Campus, and Paul actually was the one who introduced him to everybody, and we heard him read. And of all of the poets in this book, he was the one that meant the most to me. Though when I saw him in person, I had no particular special feelings. I will possibly read some of his poems. I think subsequent to his demise, his star has sort of set in the horizon, and nobody much talks about him anymore. Next figure, also born 1926, is James Merrill, and the last of my trifecta, whom I got the chance to see in person. And I don't remember where I saw him. It may well have been at the Art Institute of Chicago in their film center. I remember the auditorium very well, and I remember the man. He was never one of my favorite poets, but he was a man who I had the singular feeling of his being a very good man, a very great man even possibly. But as with my teacher Paul, his verse never sang to me. So the next name is W.D. Snodgrass, born 1926. My teacher Paul liked him. I think he published him in some anthology or something. The one with the there's one that's pretty well rhymed. I think about growing old. He's probably in his 40s or something, and his hair is falling out. And it was anthologized in its day. I don't have a copy of it, but then A.R. Emmons. Allen Ginsberg, of course, was big. A Supermarket in California is probably my favorite poem by him. I haven't looked at this stuff for a long time. John Woods, Frank O'Hara. I liked Frank O'Hara. John Ashbery, Galway Kinnell, W.S. Merwin. Merwin is one. There's a Library of America, I think possibly a 2-volume set of his collected poetry. Again, a person whose poetry never really sang to me, but whose message, I think, was very sophisticated. And I really probably owe it to myself to read his poetry in light of the message as opposed to his poetics or his prosody, such as it were. James Wright, he has that great poem. I think it's him about having wasted his life. I think I've done that one on my channel too. Other than that, the most of it never appealed to me. Then Anne Sexton. So we're getting to 1928 here. Donald Hall was 1928. I liked a lot of his prose very much, better than his poetry, except, as I say, for that one standout poem. X.J. Kennedy, I have his In a Prominent Bar in Secaucus one day on my channel. It's one of my most viewed videos of poetry. Then Adrienne Rich, a writer who I always felt had incredibly fantastic, excellent titles to her books, but whose poems never quite matched up to the titles. Edward Dorn, Gary Snyder, I think he was the one who went to Japan and possibly still lives there. Sylvia Plath, Etheridge Knight, Michael Benedict, and Tom Clark. So with Tom Clark, no, not Tom Clark, the next one, Ron Padgett. No, I was thinking we were getting into my generation, but we're not. Tom Clark was born in 41, and Ron Padgett was born in 42. I think Ron Padgett had some connection with our Yellow Press in Chicago, which also published Ted Berrigan and Paul. This actually was their edition of him. So I just sort of want to go down memory lane a little bit. I'll read to you some of the poems by Robert Creeley, and I can see why they might not be spoken of so much anymore. To me, they are more delicious sentences than full-fledged poems, perhaps. Now, if I can just find him, 1926 was the year that will get me there, page 147. And let's see what we have. And I'll sort of respond and give you my feelings, I suppose, afterwards. I'm not going to read every single one that's in here. So this one is titled, I Know a Man. As I said to my friend, because I am always talking, John, I said, which was not his name, the darkness surrounds us. What can we do against it? Or else shall we, and why not, buy a goddamn big car? Drive, he said, for Christ's sake, look out where you're going. So the style seems almost a little bit of a mixture of, say, William Carlos Williams to E.E. Cummings, that sort of thing, but not so distinctive as either man's work, possibly. But I don't know if I really can say that. I haven't read enough Williams, and I would probably prefer this to many of Williams's poems, although Williams has his classic anthologized pieces that nothing can supplant, at least as far as period anthologies. So let's see. What else have we here? Well, I'll try this one. I don't know this one that well. The Hill. It is some time since I have been to what it was had once turned me backwards and made my head into a cruel instrument. It is simple to confess, then done to walk away, to come again. But that form, I must answer, is dead in me completely, and I will not allow it to reappear. Saith perversity, the willful, the magnanimous cruelty, which is in me like a hill. So I think he's trying to describe inner landscapes, inner psychological states. And I think that may be the thing that raised him in my estimation. Next one, titled The Cracks. Don't step so lightly, break your back, missed the step. Don't go away mad, lady in the nightmare. You are central, even necessary. I will attempt to describe you. I will be completely without face, a lost chance, nothing at all left. Well, he said as he was leaving, blood tells. But you remembered quickly other times, other faces, and I slipped between the good intentions breathlessly. What a good boy am I who wants to. Will you, mother, come quickly, won't you? Why not go quietly, be left with a memory or an insinuation or two of cracks in a pavement? So I find myself charmed anew with Creeley's poetry. Now this poem is titled K-O-R-E. Is that supposed to be Kore, or is it, I mean, it doesn't seem like it would be Kor. Is that a Greek goddess or something like that? I don't know. So, K-O-R-E, Kore. As I was walking, I came upon chance walking the same road upon. As I sat down by chance to move later, if and as I might, light the wood was, light and green, and what I saw before I had not seen. It was a lady accompanied by goat men leading her. Her hair held earth, her eyes were dark, a double flute made her move. Oh love, where are you leading me now? So I would assume the lady accompanied by goat men is some kind of classical reference. But at any rate, for me, not knowing any of that sort of stuff, I mean, I'm still very poor scholastically, the poem yet speaks a mystery. And I think at its best, if a poem speaks a mystery to us, then we have come away a winner, to use the kind of parlance which is popular now. And then the last one, I will read the last one in this anthology, The Rain. All night the sound had come back again, and again falls this quiet, persistent rain. What am I to myself that must be remembered, insisted upon so often? It is that never the ease, even the hardness of rain falling, will have for me something other than this, something not so insistent. Am I to be locked in this final uneasiness? Love, if you love me, lie next to me, be for me like rain, the getting out of the tiredness, the fatuousness, the semi-lust of intentional indifference, be wet with a decent happiness. So it seems to me that he is, in these poems, touching upon some genuine experience. A lot of it is the traditional matter of poetry. And I think for whatever you may say about his technique, you may have qualms, that he, at least in these poems, is sincere. And I think that ultimately is what we look for in poetry. What was the line by Marion Moore? Poetry, I too dislike it, except blah, 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 one may find in it a place for the genuine. Well, you know, I have this other, she's got to be in this. Well, here comes James Merrill. And there's Allen Ginsberg. What thoughts I have of you tonight, Walt Whitman. For I walked down the side streets under the trees with a headache, self-conscious, looking at the full moon. And where's the real nice part where he, well, I won't read the whole poem. It's as I say, my favorite by him. But let me switch to this anthology. What do I have here? Oh, I have it opened to James Merrill. This poem, The Broken Home, is, I think, the poem that he is most known for. It was not included by Donald Hall in this anthology. It's a fairly long poem, and I will not read it for you. I don't think I would do it justice because, as I say, I don't have a lot of sympathy with his verse as such. My sympathy extends largely to the man. Now these are in here. I don't exactly know why I have them. And let me look up Marion Moore. She must be in here. It must be in here. There must be some kind of, and of course it doesn't mean that they will have that particular poem. 345. Well, hold on. Okay, well, there's Robinson Jeffers, who I like, followed by Marion Moore, and it has her poem Poetry. So let me give that to you. I mean, she was very important to me when I was young. I mean, if I said that Paul often focused on his contemporaries, poets of just slightly ahead of them in the timeline were like gods to us. So Marion Moore, William Carlos Williams, T.S. Eliot, and so forth. But so the title leads into the first sentence, and I will spare you the whole poem. Poetry, I too dislike it. There are things that are important beyond all this fiddle. Reading it, however, with a perfect contempt for it, one discovers in it, after all, a place for the genuine. And I think when she revised the poem, she cut it off there, and it goes on for multiple stanzas after that, which are delightful. But strictly speaking, she was right that nothing more needed to be said than that. And I think that is what we go to when we go to poetry. And it's Well, I don't want to say any more. It's just, if you saw my video, which was in defense of E. Cummings, I was defending him against the accusation that he was a fraud. And I think the one thing, generally speaking, that we can say about Cummings was that he was not a fraud. And I would never even consider saying that about Robert Creeley. I think, generally speaking, if we talk about poetry, it's not not the best practice to point that finger of accusation. Of course, you have the three pointing back at you. That was a figure I used in my my book about the quarantine era. So this is a lovely, lovely anthology, and I realized looking at these end papers, it once had a book cover, which they used to put on the books, and it's Kyobo Book Center, which I believe is a bookstore in Korea. So back in the days, I first, at the same time as being in these classes, I took time off and traveled to Japan and was there for I don't know how long, but the visa was only for 6 months, I think, and then you had to leave the country. And so a bunch of us went to Korea and spent a couple of weeks there. And goodness knows, I must have found this in the bookshop there. And it's a book that would not have been available in the US at the time. And it really has been a marvelous anthology. Oddly enough, it includes T.S. Eliot, who never was in any anthologies because of the fees that the estate was charging. Maybe I don't know, but it's got proofrock. I mean, it was sort of rare at a certain point to see him. Maybe nobody could omit proofrock. I mean, I guess they would have to knuckle down and pay what was asked for. I don't know all of the gossip behind these people, but I really have been thinking about Robert Creeley and where his poems have gone and where are they going. I myself have not looked at them for a long time until just finding this anthology. So I've rambled on for about half an hour, not really accomplishing anything. There is on my YouTube somewhere one of Richard's poems that I read as well. I am thinking of that Joseph Conrad story, Youth, which ends with, youth, we were young, blah, blah, blah. Well, those days are gone for good, of course. And so I will cut it short here, and thank you very much for stopping by my channel. I invite you to come again.